You ever have one of those moments where your whole life shifts in the blink of an eye, and you don't even realize it's happening? That's exactly what happened the night Marcus Reynolds got called to fix the busted elevator at the Riverfront Plaza. Just another job, he thought. Just another call. But by the time he walked out of that building, he had unknowingly rewritten the next chapter of his life, and hers too. Marcus didn't have much, but what he had, he protected with everything in him. He lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment on the west side of Cincinnati with his 8-year-old daughter, Olivia. Every morning, he made her pancakes, braided her hair the way her mom used to, and walked her to the bus stop before heading to his night shift. After losing his wife, Jenna, to breast cancer 3 years earlier, Marcus had become a solo act, playing the roles of father, mother, provider, and protector. There were no weekends off from parenting. No second income. Just Marcus, doing everything he could to keep Olivia smiling. His job wasn't glamorous. He worked nights doing maintenance across various buildings downtown. He fixed flickering lights, backed up toilets, busted HVAC systems, and tonight, it was a jammed elevator in one of the priciest high-rises in the city. Riverfront Plaza was a place where suits strode through marble lobbies, and guys like Marcus were expected to blend into the background. He got the call around 8:15 p.m. The elevator had stalled between the 16th and 17th floors. Just as he was pulling up outside, he buzzed the front desk on the building radio. "Who's inside?" he asked the sleepy-sounding security guard. "Some lady. Said her name's Victoria Caldwell. Told me she's the CEO of Caldwell Development. Not happy, either. Demanded we call someone who knows what they're doing." Marcus chuckled softly and headed toward the control room. "Tell her she's in luck." He ran a quick diagnostic on the system and noticed something odd. Someone had tried using the emergency override from inside, but the system had glitched. Probably someone panicking. He grabbed the override key and started up the stairwell toward the 17th floor. When he reached the elevator doors, he could hear someone inside, her voice tight but controlled. "Hello? Is someone out there?" "I'm here," Marcus called, kneeling by the panel. "Hang tight. I'm gonna get you out of there." There was a pause. "Thank God. I've been stuck here for almost 30 minutes, and I've got a board call with Tokyo in 20. "I'll do what I can," he said, keeping his tone calm. "Just need you to not touch anything else." "I already tried that. Didn't go well." He smiled slightly. "Yeah, I saw. You nearly fried the emergency brakes." Another pause, then, surprisingly, a laugh. "Sorry. I'm just not great at sitting still." "Don't worry, ma'am. Happens more than you think." It took nearly 25 minutes to get the doors to release. When they finally slid open, Marcus stepped back, wiping his hands on his jeans. Standing in front of him was a woman in a navy suit, heels off and phone in hand. Her red lipstick was smudged, and her expression flickered between gratitude and sheer exhaustion. "You must be Marcus," she said, reading his name tag. "Thank you. Seriously. No problem. Glad you're okay." She looked him in the eyes then, really looked. "You've got a calm presence. I needed that." He gave a nod, already gathering his tools. "Hey," she said as he turned to leave. "Do you work directly for Riverfront?" "Nah. Contracted by Steel Property Services. Night crew." "Well, they're lucky to have you." "Don't think they see it that way most days," he said with a slight smirk. "I'll make sure someone does." And with that, Victoria Caldwell turned and walked down the hallway, barefoot and clutching her stilettos like war trophies. To Marcus, it was just another night. But for Victoria, something shifted. Not just in the elevator, but inside her. Something cracked open. Later that night, Marcus picked up Olivia from the neighbor's place, made grilled cheese sandwiches, and helped her with a volcano science project she had due. She asked how his night went, and he told her about the business lady stuck in a box. Olivia laughed and asked if he wore a cape like a real hero. He ruffled her curls. Nah, just my old work boots. He thought that was it. Just a story for the night. But it wasn't. 3 days later, Marcus got a call from his supervisor, asking him to report to the main office of Caldwell Development. He didn't know why. He wasn't in trouble, as far as he knew. Still, he wore a clean shirt and brought Olivia to his neighbors early, just in case. When he stepped into the 21st floor of Caldwell's glass tower, the receptionist told him, "Miss Caldwell will see you now." He entered the conference room and froze. There she was. Victoria. This time in a softer-looking blazer, her hair pulled back, no smudged lipstick, and a warm, reserved smile on her face. "Marcus," she said, rising to shake his hand. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," he replied, still confused. "Is everything all right?" "Better than all right," she said. "I asked to meet with you personally." She pushed a folder across the table. Inside were offer papers, a position for head of building operations at Caldwell's headquarters. Better pay. Better hours. Full benefits. A clear path forward. Marcus looked up, stunned. "Is this, for real?" "I meant it when I said you were calm under pressure," she said. "You reminded me of someone." "Who?" "My dad. He raised me on his own. Worked the night shift at a packaging plant in Dayton. Never had anyone notice his effort. Never had anyone open a door for him." She looked down at the papers and back up at him. "I have the power to open one now. For someone who deserves it." Marcus's throat tightened. He looked at the numbers again. His hand gripped the edge of the table. "I'm not looking for charity," he said, quietly. "This isn't charity," Victoria replied. "It's recognition." He took a deep breath. "I've got a daughter," he said softly. "Her name's Olivia. She's everything to me." Victoria smiled. "That's exactly why you're the kind of person I want here." Marcus sat back in his chair, staring at the offer. And for the first time in a long time, he felt seen. Marcus didn't say yes right away. He took the folder home, sat at his small kitchen table after Olivia went to bed, and read it again. The numbers looked good. Really good. But it wasn't just about money. He'd worked long enough to know that even the best offers could come with invisible strings. He wasn't a man who took leaps lightly, not when he had a daughter depending on him for everything. The next morning, while Olivia crunched on cereal and watched cartoons, Marcus watched her from across the room. Her world was so small, so full of trust. If he took this job, he could finally be there to pick her up after school. No more night shifts. No more missed parent-teacher meetings. No more neighbor watching her when he was called in last minute. It was a chance to build a better rhythm, not just for himself, but for her. By the afternoon, he'd made up his mind. He showed up at Caldwell Development the next day in clean slacks and a collared shirt. The receptionist waved him through without even asking. Victoria was already standing when he entered the conference room, as if she knew. "I'll take it," he said. She smiled, genuine and warm. "I'm glad. Welcome to the team, Marcus." That moment was quiet. No dramatic music, no applause. But for Marcus, it felt like the ground beneath his feet had shifted. A man who had always lived in the background was being asked to step into the light, and not just because someone noticed his skills, but because someone had actually seen him. The transition wasn't instant. His new role meant a 2-week overlap with his old job. That meant a lot of late nights and early mornings. He was exhausted, but hopeful. Victoria made good on every promise. She arranged flexible hours, gave him a team of younger techs to manage, and even set up Olivia with a spot in the building's summer reading program on the first floor. And slowly, something else started to change. Their meetings became more frequent, and more personal. What began as check-ins to discuss building operations turned into longer conversations over coffee. Victoria would ask about Olivia. Marcus would ask about her childhood in Dayton. They talked about music, books, the way the city had changed, and the things that hadn't. He found out she liked Miles Davis and apple pie. She found out he hated elevators now more than ever, but wouldn't admit it out loud. He learned she stayed late at the office most nights not because she had to, but because there was no one waiting for her at home. She learned that Marcus hadn't been on a date in 3 years, not because he didn't want to, but because no one ever stuck around long enough to understand what it meant to be a full-time dad with a full-time job and a heart still healing. There was no romance yet. No flirty exchanges. Just space. Respect. Curiosity. That was enough. One afternoon, Marcus was waiting for Olivia outside school. She came running, backpack bouncing, cheeks flushed. "Daddy," she yelled, throwing her arms around his waist. "Guess what? We're going to the science center next week." "That's great, baby," he said. "Who's taking you?" "Ms. Caldwell," she beamed. "She's helping with the reading club field trip." He blinked. "Victoria's going?" "Yeah. She said she liked volcanoes when she was little. She's super cool." Marcus tried to hide the smile tugging at his mouth. "Yeah. I guess she is." Later that week, Victoria stopped by Marcus's office with 2 coffees. "I hope you don't mind," she said, setting one down. "I remembered you take it black." He took a sip, nodded. "You remembered right." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the city skyline stretch beyond the window. "You didn't have to go on that field trip," he said eventually. "I wanted to," she replied. "Besides, Olivia told me all about her volcano project. I couldn't miss that." He looked over at her, thoughtful. "You know, most people in your position wouldn't think twice about a guy like me. Or my kid." Victoria turned, serious now. "And most people in your position would have left me in that elevator to stew in my own attitude," she said softly. "But you didn't. You treated me like a person. Not a title. I don't forget that kind of grace." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. And in that glance was something unspoken. Not love. Not yet. But something blooming. A few weeks later, Victoria invited Marcus and Olivia to a small cookout at her place. Nothing fancy. Just burgers, lemonade, and a few co-workers from the company. Olivia wore her favorite sundress, and Marcus brought homemade peach cobbler, the only dessert he'd learned to bake with Jenna before she passed. Everyone was surprised to see Marcus there, even more surprised to see Victoria laughing like a regular person instead of the untouchable CEO. The quiet understanding between them didn't go unnoticed. After everyone left and Olivia was dozing off in a lawn chair, Victoria helped Marcus carry dishes inside. "She's incredible," she said, nodding at Olivia. "She's my world," he said simply. Victoria turned to him, something soft in her expression. "You're doing a good job, Marcus. I hope someone's told you that lately." He looked down, emotion creeping into his throat. "Doesn't always feel like it." "Well, it's true." Then came the moment he would never forget. She reached into the drawer and handed him an envelope. He opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not from HR. Not typed. It was from her. "Marcus. You didn't just help me out of that elevator. You helped me find a way back to who I used to be, someone who saw people, not just problems. You reminded me that real leadership isn't about titles. It's about heart. And you've got more of that than anyone I've met in a long time. Thank you, for rescuing me that night. And for everything since." It wasn't the words alone that left Marcus speechless. It was the sincerity behind them. The fact that someone who stood so high in the world had taken the time to see him, not as a janitor, not as a project, but as a man with worth beyond measure. He swallowed, not trusting his voice. "I don't know what to say," he murmured. She stepped closer, just enough. "Don't say anything. Just know, this is only the beginning." And for the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to believe it might be true. It was a Sunday morning when Marcus sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching Olivia draw chalk rainbows on the pavement. The summer breeze carried laughter from the nearby park, and for a rare moment, life felt still. Peaceful. He opened Victoria's letter again. He must have read it 10 times by now, but something about it grounded him. In a life that had felt like constant motion since Jenna passed, always moving, always surviving, it was the first time in years he didn't feel invisible. Things had shifted between him and Victoria after that cookout. They still kept things professional at work, she never showed him favoritism, and he never expected it. But outside of the office, they started sharing pieces of their lives that most people never got to see. One Friday night, Victoria invited Marcus and Olivia over for a pizza and puzzle night. It sounded simple enough. But to Olivia, it was magic. Victoria had picked out a space-themed puzzle with glowing stars and even found a few books on astronomy that Olivia could take home. "I don't know how you have time for all this," Marcus said, watching his daughter giggle on the floor. Victoria shrugged. "I make time. That's what matters, isn't it?" He looked at her, really looked. "You always this good with kids?" She paused. "I wanted kids, once. Life had other plans." He didn't push further. But in her voice, he could hear the echo of something unsaid. A longing that mirrored his own. Over the following weeks, Victoria became part of their rhythm. Sometimes she joined them for walks to the local farmers' market. Other times, Marcus stopped by her office after hours just to talk, about life, about raising kids, about how lonely success could feel when there was no one to share it with. One evening, after a long day, Marcus picked up Olivia from summer reading club and walked her downstairs toward the lobby. She was holding a paper certificate in one hand and a juice box in the other. "Ms. Caldwell gave me this," she said proudly. "She said I was the best reader in the whole group." Victoria came up behind her, smiling. "She earned it," she said, meeting Marcus's eyes. He nodded. "She's a lot like her mom was. Smart. Kind. Stubborn." Victoria's expression softened. "And lucky. She's got a dad who shows up. That's everything." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Victoria asked, "Can I walk with you two a bit?" They walked along the riverfront, with Olivia skipping ahead. The city glowed behind them, lights bouncing off the water. Marcus finally said, "You know, I never expected any of this." "Any of what?" "You. This job. This new life. I was just getting by." Victoria looked up at him. "You weren't just getting by, Marcus. You were surviving. Thriving, even. And you've built something strong, something Olivia can stand on. Don't ever downplay that." He stopped walking for a second, staring at the water. "I used to think maybe my best days were behind me," he said. "After Jenna passed, I didn't think I had anything left to offer." Victoria reached for his hand without even thinking. And he didn't pull away. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the best chapters are the ones we don't see coming." He turned to her then, heart pounding, and for the first time since that elevator night, he allowed himself to hope. Weeks turned into months. By early fall, Marcus had fully settled into his role. He oversaw a team of 10, scheduled vendor inspections, handled high-priority maintenance issues, and even consulted on energy efficiency improvements for the company's other buildings. Victoria often asked for his input on bigger projects. She trusted him. More than that, she respected him. One Friday, she pulled him into a meeting with her senior execs to review a proposed renovation plan. Half the room seemed surprised when she deferred to Marcus midway through the presentation. "Marcus," she said, "you've walked every inch of this building. What do you think?" He didn't stutter. He didn't shrink. He spoke with confidence, and when the meeting ended, even the CFO gave him a nod of respect. Later, Victoria caught up with him in the hallway. "You were amazing in there," she said. He smiled. "Thanks to you." "No," she replied. "Thanks to you." They stood there for a moment too long. Then she said softly, "I'm going to a fundraiser tomorrow night. It's formal. Would you like to come with me?" He blinked. "Like a date?" "I was thinking, yeah." He didn't answer immediately. Not because he didn't want to, but because part of him still wondered if he could let someone in again. If he could allow himself joy without guilt. But then he saw Olivia's face in his mind. Her joy. Her hope. "Yeah," he said, smiling. "I'd love to." The night of the fundraiser, Victoria wore a deep emerald dress that made Marcus forget how to speak. He'd borrowed a navy suit from a friend, the tie slightly crooked, but she didn't seem to notice, or care. They danced once, laughed twice, and made it through the night without a single awkward silence. It felt natural. Like something that had been waiting to happen for a long time. On the ride home, she rested her head lightly on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been the one called that night?" she asked. He chuckled. "You might have still been stuck in that elevator." She smiled against his arm. "Then I'm glad it was you." "So am I," he whispered. He walked her to her door, hesitating. "I don't want to rush anything," he said. "But I like this. I like you." She took his hand. "Me too, Marcus. Me too." By winter, they weren't hiding it anymore. Victoria came to Olivia's school recital, sat beside Marcus in the third row, and clapped like she was part of the family. She was. One evening, Marcus found a note taped to Olivia's door. It read, "Dear Daddy. I like when Ms. Caldwell comes over. She makes you smile like Mommy used to. Maybe she can stay with us forever. Love, Olivia." Marcus folded the note and sat on the edge of the bed, heart full. Somewhere between broken elevators and second chances, a new life had formed, quietly, tenderly, powerfully. And all it took was a moment of grace in a moment of panic. A man who showed up. A woman who looked past the surface. And a little girl who reminded them both that love doesn't come with instructions, it just shows up and asks to be believed in. Marcus believed now. So did Victoria. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't scare him. It welcomed him.